Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are tackling a subject that I feel is almost a rite of passage for anyone living in the United States. You're at a bar or a family cookout, the TV is on, and someone points at a soccer match and just asks, why can't we just get into this?
It really is the great American paradox, isn't it?
It is.
4 billion fans. It's practically a religion in Europe, South America, Africa.
And usually, we cycle through the same old excuses. Americans have short attention spans, or there's not enough scoring.
Right, or the market is just saturated with the NFL and NBA, the we're too busy watching other stuff theory.
Exactly. But the source material we are unpacking today, it takes all those theories, crumples them up, and basically throws them in the trash.
It really does.
We're looking at a paper from the North American Review of Sports Psychology. It's from December 2025, and it's called The Manual Imperative: Evolutionary Dissonance and the Rejection of Pedal-Centric Sport in the United States.
It is a pretty confronting piece of research. The authors, Dr. Edward Harrington and Dr. Amanda Jenkins, they argue our rejection of soccer isn't cultural. It's not about marketing. It is, biological.
And to show just how dire this situation is, they lead with this statistic. They point out that in the U.S., soccer viewership trails competitive hot dog eating.
Yes.
The core argument is that the American ethos, the whole evolutionary foundation of the country, is built entirely on grasping. Think about the history of the nation, right? Manifest Destiny was about grasping territory. Even, the modern consumer experience, walking into a convenience store and grasping a 64-ounce refillable beverage.
So the argument is that the American biological imperative is to seize control with your hands.
And soccer is the one major global sport that tells you flat out, do not touch that.
The paper argues that not being able to use your hands triggers a subconscious cortisol-fueled stress response. You see it as a denial of your evolutionary purpose as an apex predator.
That is intense. It's not, I don't like this game. It's, this game is insulting my very biology.
Precisely. If you're an apex predator, you grab what you want. You don't just sort of nudge it with your foot.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. This sounds like a pretty wild theory. But the authors didn't just speculate, they actually ran an experiment to prove it.
And the methodology, it sounds like something out of a dystopian sci-fi novel.
It really does.
They used what they called the restrained limb protocol. They took 500 American males, ages 18 to 45, and strapped them into these devices they explicitly called aversion chairs.
Which they compared to the Ludovico technique from A Clockwork Orange. Not a comforting image.
Not at all. So the subjects were restrained. They couldn't move their arms. Then they were shown 2 different video feeds. Group A watched like an NFL quarterback throwing a perfect spiral, and Group B watched a full 90-minute Premier League match. A real tactical stalemate between Manchester City and Arsenal.
And they're measuring brain activity this whole time.
Yes, fMRI scans of the somatosensory cortex.
Somatosensory cortex. For anyone who skipped biology class, that's the part of the brain that's like a map of your body, right?
It's the map of your body and your brain, yeah. And they were watching the area that maps the thumb and fingers.
So what happened when the subjects watched the soccer match?
The results were incredibly consistent. While watching the footwork, the dribbling, all of it, the subjects' brains lit up with patterns consistent with phantom limb pain.
Wait, really? Like the brain thought the arm had been amputated.
They coined a term for it, useless arm anxiety. In 98% of the subjects, the brain registered the player's arms as atrophied or vestigial.
That is wild.
Yes. But here's where it gets really interesting. The study found only one moment in the whole 90-minute match where American viewers got a spike in dopamine.
I would have guessed a goal. Or maybe a really hard tackle.
You'd think so. But no. The dopamine spike, a massive 400% increase, it happened when the goalkeeper caught the ball.
Just a catch.
Just a catch. The authors call it manual relief. It was the only moment the American brain recognized the activity as sport because somebody finally seized control with their hands. It validated their existence.
So if I'm getting this right, we're basically wired to only enjoy sports where we're holding an object.
Exactly. Basketball, baseball, football, even hockey, you're holding a stick.
Soccer is the outlier. The hands just hang there. And the paper argues that posture, arms down, palms open, we associate that with surrender.
Or, even worse, it's the posture of powerlessness.
But then the paper shifts into the psychology and economics of the game, which I found even more compelling.
The dreaded 0-0 draw, the 0-0 problem.
Right. And the standard complaint is just that a tie is boring. I watched for 2 hours and nobody won. But these researchers say it's not just boredom, it's an existential crisis.
It comes down to the transaction. The American psyche is, deeply capitalist. It operates on accumulation. More points equals more value. A score of nil is linguistically and mathematically terrifying to a culture built on getting more. You paid and you got nothing.
They even have a formula for this in the paper, the Hamiltonian boredom operator.
Yes, it proves that as the rate of goals approaches zero, boredom approaches infinity.
But it's the why that really got me. It connects to how time works in the sport. Think about American sports. What's the most important thing in the NFL or the NBA?
The clock.
But specifically, the fact that the clock stops.
Right. For commercials, for timeouts, if a player's shoelace comes untied, we control the time.
The clock is our servant.
But in soccer, the clock counts up and it never, ever stops.
Which gives you that feeling of just this inevitable forward motion. Can't pause it.
And the authors argue that creates a sensation of unstoppable mortality. American sports have the 2-minute warning. Think about that phrase. It's a comforting pause. It says, the end is near, but we can stop it. We can take a breath. We can sell you a truck.
It's a denial of the end.
Precisely. But soccer's relentless march toward the 90th minute. You're watching your life slip away, second by unstopping second.
That is terrifying. I just wanted to watch a game, not confront the finite nature of my existence.
But it makes sense why we prefer timeouts. It's a control thing again. Control of the ball, control of the clock.
Speaking of control or the lack of it, we have to talk about the rules. Because this paper makes the case that the rules of soccer aren't just confusing to Americans, they're technically unconstitutional.
This section, Constitutional Violations and Geopolitics, it explains so much about the confusion around the offside rule.
They actually surveyed 1,000 Americans, asking them to explain it. What was the success rate?
0.0%.
Not a single person could explain it.
Not one. But the paper argues it's not because we're not smart enough. It's because the rule is ideological nonsense to us.
Okay, how so?
Think about what it does. It prohibits a player from going behind the enemy line before the ball gets there.
You can't just hang out by the goal and wait.
Right. But to the American mind, that violates the spirit of manifest destiny.
Of course. If I want to go stand over there, that is my right as a pioneer. It's a zoning law on a grass field.
It is. And they actually list out the specific amendments that soccer violates. It's a great list. First, the no hands rule. They argue it's a violation of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms.
Or in this case, the right to bear balls.
Right. It triggers that useless arm anxiety. Then you have the offside rule, which they say violates the Fourth Amendment. You are seizing my right to stand where I want. Then there's the yellow card. The paper suggests this triggers HR department trauma.
It feels like getting written up at work.
It feels bureaucratic. It's not justice, it's management. And finally, stoppage time. They call it arbitrary authority. Some guy in a neon shirt just decides to add 4 minutes.
It does feel arbitrary. Why 4? Why not 3? Why not 5?
Americans distrust that. We want the clock to be digital, precise, and visible. Soccer feels like a monarchy where the referee king decides when the day is over. It offends our democratic sensibilities.
It's all coming together. We need a written constitution for our sports, and soccer feels like the old world, full of arbitrary kings.
Exactly. It's a clash of civilizations on a pitch.
Okay, so we've covered biology, economics, and politics, but we have to talk about physics. The section on the flop versus the hit.
The kinetic masochism ratio.
This is where the cultural divide is most visible. Americans hate flopping. We call it soft. We mock it.
We do, but the authors make a really nuanced point here. It's not that Americans hate acting. We love the WWE.
That is true. We know it's fake, but we cheer anyway.
But the genre is different. Wrestling is high-stakes combat drama. Soccer acting is French melodrama.
That explains so much.
Yes. In the NFL, a player gets tackled with the force of a small car. The helmet flies off.
And the crowd goes wild.
But in soccer, a player gets brushed by a gust of wind and they collapse.
Clutching their shin like they've been shot.
Exactly. Without that massive impact, the American brain just registers confusion. And in soccer, you fake suffering to get a free kick. It feels like cheating the system. It's getting something for nothing.
So before we get to the solutions, and they do propose solutions, we have to talk about the ball itself.
Yes. So look at the American football. It's a prolate spheroid.
It's pointy.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And it is completely unpredictable. When a football hits the ground, it's pure chaos. You don't know which way it's going to bounce.
A fumble is the most exciting play in the game because of that chaos.
It represents the American dream, rags to riches. A bad bounce can ruin you. A good bounce can make you a hero. The rugged individualist of a ball.
And the soccer ball?
A perfect sphere. Predictable. It represents the collective.
The socialist object.
That's what they call it. A perfect sphere is just suspicious.
It's too perfect. We don't trust it.
So to recap, we have a biological rejection of not using hands, a political rejection of the rules, an economic rejection of the scoring, and a geometric rejection of the ball itself.
It seems hopeless. But as I said, Dr. Harrington and Dr. Jenkins do propose some fixes. They call them the Americanization protocols.
And they are brilliant.
Let's run through them. First up, multi-ball.
Simple enough. You introduce 3 balls into the game at the same time.
Why 3?
To stimulate the ADHD cortex. If 1 ball is boring, 3 balls creates the chaotic stimuli needed to keep the American viewer from looking at their phone.
Next up, the freedom hand.
This directly addresses the prehensile denial hypothesis. Once per half, a player is allowed to just pick up the ball and run with it.
But there's a condition.
A very important condition. They have to scream while doing it.
Just continuous screaming.
Screaming is essential. It releases the cortisol buildup from the restrained limb anxiety. It's that manual relief we talked about. You grab the object, you roar, you run.
That's a pressure valve. So bring this all back. The underlying point is fascinating. It's just, our rejection of soccer isn't just a matter of taste. It's biological and cultural incompatibility. We need the hands, we need the chaos, and we need the clock to stop so you don't have to think about death. So here's a provocative thought to leave you with. If the shape of a ball, the difference between a chaotic spheroid and a perfect sphere, can dictate our political comfort, what does our preference for other sports, say like golf, say about our view of freedom? Is it about the conquest of nature?
Or take it a step further. If we're so wired for manual control, what are we missing out on by refusing to just let the ball roll? Maybe there's some value in letting go of that grasping reflex.
That is something to mull over next time you're watching a game or waiting in line at the DMV, trying not to scream. Maybe try to suppress that manual tactile dependency. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time.
Keep grasping.